Hi, welcome back. My name is Deja. I'm an astrologer, and I'm so excited to be introducing my Saturn series. People on Instagram a while back asked me to do a video on working with Saturn, and I was like, I kind of felt impostery about it because first off, I'm pretty young, and Saturn is so interested in like long term stuff and thinking about things literally 30 years down the road. So I'm like, I don't know if I'm qualified to talk about Saturn that intensely, but I was like, okay, how I work with Saturn is very different from how other people work with Saturn. And I know a lot of the people who were following me, this was back on Queen Jupiter Astrology, on that Instagram account. A lot of the people who were following me and a lot of my clients were going through their Saturn return. A majority of them have Saturn in Aquarius. So I knew that they were kind of craving that perspective. So we're working on that. But obviously, I had to begin with my very own Saturn placement of Saturn in Aries. I think it's learning about Saturn in fall kind of allows you to really understand Saturn when it's dignified as well. So I'm really excited to be starting with this placement and chatting with my friend John all about it. They also have Saturn in Aries, so it's a fun ride. We chat through the things that were going on in the late 90s when Saturn was in Aries last, when we were born. And then we also chat about things when Saturn was in Aries before that. So I think it's like 20 however many years prior to that, and we go back in history, and then we think about just the placement generally and give some really good delineations. We share different like just life experiences living with Saturn and Aries. And we're also both pretty Saturnian. I have an Aquarius stellium and John has multiple other Saturnian placements. So we're grooving together. It's a tough life we live out here with Saturn and Aries. I'm not gonna talk it down. I'm not gonna downplay it. Like, it's a tough life we live, but I am so excited to see what we as a generation, what we do, especially with that trine from Pluto, the Pluto and Saturn and Aries gen. Like, I am kind of really, it's going to be pretty wild. But yes, I hope you all enjoy this video. Next is going to be Saturn in Pisces. I'm going to go backwards so that I can get to Saturn in Aquarius a little bit faster. That's going to be coming out. I haven't decided when I'm going to post it, but I'm thinking about doing July 13th. So Saturn in Pisces people, I'm pretty sure it's 1994 through 96, maybe like the first half of 96. I don't really remember off the top of my head. Peep back in July 13 or subscribe to my channel and turn on the notification bell so that you're always aware of when I post a video. Do people actually do that? Because, like, I actually really don't know. I don't do that for the YouTubers that I watch because, like, I'll find your video. Like, I don't need to turn on the notification bell. But if you want to, please do, because then you'll always know. If you need that reminder, do that. I also don't have, like, a set post date day of the week. You know what I mean? So I understand. I actually do think it's important to do it for me. So do it for me. Okay. But yes, I hope you all enjoy this video. I hope you all enjoy this series, and I'll check back in next week. Bye. Okay. Hello. Um, I'm here with John, and we are going to chat about Saturn and Aries. So excited. We both have this placement, both in different spaces in our chart. If you want to share like where that is in your chart, you totally can. But I have Saturn and Aries conjunct my ascendant, so turn up. It's a fun experience. But yeah, how about you? Welcome. Hello. Introduce yourself.
Hi everyone, my name is John. I'm at Astrologon on most social medias. My pronouns are they, them, and I have Saturn in a night chart in Aries in the 11th house. With my, not conjunct, they're like 10 degrees apart, but my part of fortune is also in Aries in the 11th. And I have tons of Cap and Aquarius in me, so Saturn really has his hold on me. For better or for worse. Still undecided.
It's like weird. It's weird. It's like having, how do you let that how do you let Saturn and Aries have that much responsibility? Just period. Like, how do you let that happen? How do you like? I just I don't know why. I don't know why the planets thought that that was a really good idea, because I also have like an Aquarius stellium, and it's ruled by my Saturn and Aries, and I'm like, okay, well, here we go. This is this is a job. Like, you know what I think about? Okay, and I've been holding this in because I was like, maybe I'm like maybe this isn't accurate, but that picture of the big boat in the Suez Canal with that little bulldozer, I was like, that that Saturn and Aries. Like, that's how I feel like I'm navigating my life. Like, I, yep.
I thought you were gonna bring up the one of like the dog in the burning building, and the dog is like, everything's fine,
Oh yeah,
and
that
the building
too.
is that feels very like complacency and chaos feels very Saturn and Aries to me.
Yeah, yeah. And you have to suck it up. Like, you have no choice but to.
Like, what else am I gonna do? Like, I just gotta keep going, and that also is very Saturn. Like, I think about our like generationally Pluto, whatever, but subgenerationally, and I know Kira uses Saturn, and
Mhm.
she's like the Saturn and Aries cohort, and like I have not met a single person in our age group that is like okay with relaxing. Like,
Mm-mm.
we are all very like, I gotta go, I gotta be like, even like things that are like pleasurable to me, I feel the need to make either competitive or like production based. Like, I'm a huge gamer, but like if
Mm.
I don't play, if I'm like, okay, I want to beat like this boss today, and I don't get there, like I get so mad at myself for like not meeting my own like self-imposed goal on something that it's supposed to be fun. Like, oh,
Oh, I totally agree. Like, it's really wild. I feel like I never am doing enough, and if I am, even if the stuff that I am doing, I feel like I'm not doing it good enough. Like, I feel like it could be done better. That's that Martian quality of Saturn and Aries that's like it's so bizarre, because I'm like, how come Capricorn got all the goodness with having Saturn in domicile and Mars exalted in Cap? Like, how? Why did we? Why? And it's just, I never feel okay with the amount of stuff that I have done, and it does become, and that's something that I feel like I've really been trying to work with, is not making everything a competition within myself. Like, I feel like I am always competing with my myself and this weird like timeline that I've created in my brain that like doesn't exist. Like, it's really weird. I feel like I'm trying to get to retirement, but I want retirement to be like 35. I don't it's But even then I feel like it doesn't stop there. You don't stop.
yeah,
You
yeah,
keep living
exactly.
with Saturn and Aries. And no, I don't. Mm.
Something that you brought up with, so Capricorn being like Saturn's domicile and Mars's exaltation, I feel like that Mars Saturn relationship is so interesting because Mars is exalted in Saturn's sign, but Saturn's in fall in Mars's sign, and it's like almost like I think about that being like Mars, as if Mars is like a bowling ball and Saturn is like the
Mm.
guardrails. Like, Mars needs that like those
Mm.
boundaries and that like structure to kind of navigate through the lane,
Mm-hmm.
but Saturn in the home of like Mars's movement and like, yes, like fire sign, it's got triplicity there, but like Saturn is not fire. Saturn is excessively cold, and it's like Saturn wants to not do a damn thing, and Mars is like that annoying like toddler like poking him and being like, haha, you want to go? You want to go? You want to go?
Literally, it's that's so true. I love that analogy with like a bowling ball, because that is really how like Mars is moving, you know what I mean? And yeah. Hmm. There's something else that you said, I was like, wow, that actually, that really resonates a lot. But there's like this speed, something that I told myself. I was like, I felt like I had to, and I also think it was the Saturn square, our Saturn square in the fall. I really, with Saturn going through Capricorn and making that sign base square to natal Saturn in Aries, it just, and then even on top of that, the Mars Saturn square just transiting, it was all like I felt so much like pressure to be honestly successful. Like I was like, you are
Mm-hmm.
not doing enough. You have done
Mm-hmm.
nothing. You have so much work to do. You need to keep going. You cannot stop. And I
Mm-hmm.
look back at that time and I'm like, why was I exerting that much energy? Like why was I trying to create a whole career in 2 months? Like that's
It's
not
mm-hmm.
you can't do that. Like you
Mm-hmm.
have give it time. And I wrote something down. I was like, listen, you have to slow down and it's okay. But then
It's fine. Yeah.
to remedy that, if I start now and if I get it all started now, then in 10 years from now, I will have like done all of this. So I might as well get started now. So it's like this weird double-edged sword that I was but
that that whole Saturn, like 3 years, I think it was like a full stay in Capricorn. I remember. So I started my Aquarius perfection when Saturn
mm,
was in Sagittarius and about to move into Capricorn.
mm-hmm.
Saturn was conjunct my Mars, that my Lord of Fortune, the day I read my first astrology article. I was in a ninth house
Wow.
perfection. Saturn moves into
Wow.
Capricorn. 2 days later, my grandma passed away. When Saturn moves into my
Oh.
eighth house during a Saturn perfection, grandma passes
Mm.
away. Like a month later, Saturn, I have a very early degree Capricorn, Venus. Saturn conjunct my Capricorn, went through like a breakup, end of a relationship. And then the
Oh.
whole stay of Saturn in Capricorn was like my astrology, like, I'm going to learn, I'm going to make this like my thing. Ninth house ruled by Saturn, like, okay, makes a lot of sense. But like that whole Saturn and Capricorn like stay, I was like, I have to grind, like I have to be like, it was fully like I was Ash Ketchum of astrology. I was like, I want to be the very best. I want to catch them all. I got to do it. And now I'm like, you have time. Like Saturn rules my midheaven. Like I know things are going to be funky for me during my Saturn return with my job. So I'm just kind of like feeling things out until that Saturn return, which I think both of us are very like, what the fuck is going to happen? Because like it's Saturn in Aries. Like it's truly expect the unexpected. Like I have no idea what's gonna go down, but I know it's gonna be bad.
It's going to be it's that time 2026 uh that time is going to be so wild. Like it's just going to be Neptune's going to roll through Aries. I think you we chatted about this in our pre-show chats.
Pre-show chat.
Uranus ingresses into Gemini. Pluto is in Aquarius. I just I don't know. Like Saturn also rules my midheaven too. I'm actually realizing we actually have a lot of like very similar placements that's just like kind of all registering my brain. But um I just like I literally um just feel like right now that square was like really frustrating. It was really like, okay, you need to like actually figure out what you're doing with your life. You need to figure out like where you are going. And uh right now it's not too bad with the Saturn sextile and Aquarius. It's not as I feel like it's a little bit more chilled, but I still feel that pressure in a way.
Mm-hmm.
Um I also think Jupiter is making it a little nicer, but ah,
For sure.
Saturn return time. I'm just like I'm just like ready to embrace a new era of living. Um, and because the astrologer, I don't know his name, and I don't remember. I want to say it's like Foucault or something like that. I feel like there's like an F and an O and an AULT something somewhere. And he was
Michel,
talking.
no, Foucault. Is that who you're
There you
talking about?
go.
Okay.
There you go. And he chats about all those sextiles being the thing that like launches us. So it's going to be interesting to see Saturn and Aries people like us having our first Saturn return, and then even the folks who are older who are having their second or their do you a second or I'm pretty sure you can get to your third
You can
too.
get to your third, yeah.
Right, yeah, and having
We-
all of those experiences is just going to be interesting to watch us like all ascend in this really bizarre way, along with the turn of the world.
And like if you like all those, so we have Pluto in Aquarius, trine Uranus and Gemini, and Saturn and Neptune and Aries will be that like that like bridge, and like that Pluto like great change, that Uranus like sudden change, and that Saturn sense of like longevity and stability, like being the bridge between. Like I am very, and I know it sounds weird, but I'm oddly like very hopeful, because I feel like in the era of like Saturn in Capricorn and Aquarius, like we've had the most like societal change and movement that we've had like in a long time, and a lot of me feels like this not that it hasn't yet culminated, because they're obviously like during like June and July of last year when Saturn briefly moved into Aquarius, like
mm-hmm.
protests and shit like blew up.
Mm-hmm.
And part of me thinks that this Saturn, so a lot of my underlying philosophy with Saturn and Aries is that we understand that in order to make change, like you have to burn things down. Like
Literally.
systems are created to be long and self-sufficient. Saturn and Aries is like, okay, and like I'm gonna find a way to get what I want and burn this shit to the ground. Like
yep.
We understand that in order for change to happen, destruction must come first.
Yeah.
And it feels to me that when Saturn gets back in Aries after this, like I'm honestly more worried for what Saturn in Pisces is going to bring, even though it is much more neutral. But like it feels like it will be this long, slow build up. You know, Pisces slow connotation to Aries being like, okay, like spark,
right
light the match, like start again.
Yeah.
So I'm hopeful but worried, and I think that's like an okay place to be.
Definitely. No, I totally agree. I feel like I am a little worried about Saturn and Pisces. I'm worried that like and I just feel like this is just me being Saturnian generally. Like I feel like I'm worried that like we're going to become too too unaware of like the actual tangible boundaries that we are creating. And I don't know, I just you're right. I feel like it is going to feel a little long. It is going to just be Saturn kind of not doing too much. It's probably going to come up to not, I'm trying to think about where everything else is going to be at that time. But when Saturn comes into Aries and ingresses into the sign of their fall, I definitely feel like we are really all going to just be called to like just destroy, literally, like, and that's the first step in making some sort of change. Like the fire signs are bringing change on a very like chemically based level. It's like scorches the previous thing and it can possibly make room for new growth in a way. And it's necessary. It's going to be so necessary, like so necessary, because I definitely, the protests and all that were beautiful to witness, to see people coming out and to kind of standing up. And then the response of it was what was so scary. And then where we are at now, I feel like in terms of people, I don't know, I just feel like we're kind of I'm worried about our complacency as a society. And I think that's what I'm primarily worried about with Saturn and Pisces, is the complacency. And as you say, is like the slowness of it. But I feel like just that energy, like shift into Saturn and Aries, I feel like we're all just going to kind of have this moment where we're like, oh no, we actually, in order to make this change, it needs to be by fire. Like it needs to be by energy and like a transmitting of that energy to others. And I also feel like we're just gonna know, like fire signs are really intuitive, and like when you're tapped into energy, you just know, and I don't know, I feel like we're all going to be called to take stands and be like, no, this structure, these rules, these responsibilities, these obligations do not sustain my independence. They don't sustain my agency, and I'm getting rid of it. Like, that's my life motto.
Like you said, agency, and like like that feels so Aries and like
Mm-hmm.
so Martian to me. Like
Mm-hmm.
my agency, my will. Like what do I don't care what you want me to do. I care what I want to do.
Yeah. Yep. Yep.
And like I always call our like Saturn Aries sub generation, we're like the don't tell me what to do
Mm-hmm.
generation. Like we all want to be our own boss. We all want to make our own. Like I will fully be going to like do something at work, and the second my supervisor is like, "Hey John, did you start that project yet?" No, I don't want to do it. I was doing it out of my own volition, and the fact that you now asked me to do it, I'm
Mm-hmm.
like, I will do
Nope.
everything else at work as opposed to this one small task that you asked me to do. And I don't know if it's like a spike. I don't know where it comes from, but that feels very much like a Saturn and Aries
Mm-hmm.
thing.
Mm-hmm. I relate to that.
I did just do some forecasting to check because I was like, are we going to have eclipses in Aries and Libra
Oh
when Saturn
no.
is there?
Oh my God.
Thankfully, we're not.
Okay.
The nodes move into Pisces and Virgo while Saturn is still in Pisces. So we'll have like a few Pisces
Okay.
Virgo eclipses with
Yeah.
Saturn involved.
Okay.
Thankfully, the Aries Libra ones
We missed
happened
that.
before. Yeah. Because as we know, based on my observations, the Saturn nodes crap
Yeah.
is
Yeah.
not
Oh,
fun.
yes. Yes. Let's talk about that because there are people in our generation who have that nodal axis conjunction with Saturn and Aries.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's true. Like I'm always like, oh, poor me, Saturn and Aries, but like Virgo Pisces nodes, baby. Like it could be so much worse. It could be so much worse.
It could. It could. I think they would have had the South Node with Saturn, right? If well, our group of people, I think that would have been
Our group of people,
early
yeah, would have been,
1996 probably.
yep, that was South Node in
Yeah.
Aries.
Yeah. That I feel like that sounds this is like so like straight simple delineation, but that really just does sound draining. Like that sounds like a lot of trying to work with these really like trying to like not ignore but deprioritize these like Saturnian boundaries and like figuring out how to work with these tools that I feel like is I don't know, I am appreciative of having these experiences of needing to like, and this is me having a date chart. I appreciate being given like uh a fork and being expected to build a castle. Like it's been painful and it's been stressful and very frustrating, but in a way I feel like having that fire to like uh get out there and be comfortable with being like that doesn't work at all, I'm disregarding it and we're moving to something else. I appreciate that, but South Node and Saturn just sounds like you're just really pouring out a lot of discipline and dedication and not really
Mm-hmm.
um uh actualizing it or seeing the other side of it. And maybe that's
Mm-hmm.
just like maybe that experience is one that's like I don't know if I'm sounding too mean. I'm so sorry for the people out there. I don't want to I hope this isn't mean. Like I'm not trying to get there at all. I don't know. I don't know. The South Node really kind of spiritualizes things, and there's a part of like Aries that I feel like appreciates seeing the reward. Like I don't know. Like
Mm-hmm.
I just
Mm-hmm.
I to reward in whatever aspect, not just like achievement of oh my god you've made $10,000. Not that. No sorts of like our connections to reward on a very like how the dominant culture assigns
Mm-hmm.
reward, but just feeling self-sufficient feels like this. It feels like an accomplishment to me. Um,
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's like you can't acknowledge that sense of like fulfillment
yeah.
in like I am someone who when I do a lot, it takes me a little while to like recognize like, oh, okay, like I did a lot, like I see the fruits of my labor.
Mm-hmm.
But with this Saturn South Node, like it feels like, especially Aries, like you can just produce and never see your own results. Like they could be there and you're just fully unable to see them
Mm-hmm.
because
Mm-hmm.
that South Node is like that tail of like there's no head. It's the tail. It's just the bottom half. Like it's
Yeah.
not there's no visible aspect of it.
Yeah. Yeah.
So yeah, it feels truly there's like so much sympathy that I have for like those 1996 Saturn and Aries on the South Node people,
Same.
especially the ones with Mars in Libra too. Like that
I know somebody. With they. I'm pretty sure they have their notes in. One of my really good friends actually. I'm pretty sure she still has her notes in Virgo in Pisces, but she
Mhm,
has that Mars in Libra, Saturn and Aries.
mhm,
Aries rising too. It's really interesting to see it
mm,
play out. It's really, really
mm.
interesting.
My best friend in the world is day chart Scorpio rising, Mars in Libra, opposite Saturn in Aries, and
Hmm.
it truly is like that own worst enemy. Like I will never be good enough, like forever.
Yeah, it's
It's rough.
tough.
It's rough.
It's really rough. It's really, really rough. If we just have to kind of learn how to be patient with ourselves, patience and humility are like two really big things. I feel like those are just really big Saturnian things in general,
Hmm.
but because Saturn is in fall, like I Kira explained it. I got this from her. I loved how she kind of framed this, how planets that are fallen are sunken, they're below eye level, and they have to kind of overextend and underextend and do that trial and error to find that middle ground, to find that like the sweet spot. And um that trial and error is tough, especially with Saturn, because when you fail, you fail. Like
So you,
Saturn
yeah.
is like, I'm putting you on your ass. Like you suck, and I do not care. You suck. Like I I have had many, many, many moments of humiliation, and I am like reminded of them in like these weird flashes in my brain. I'm like, oh God,
Hmm.
it's just
Hmm.
that speed of like wanting to just like responsibility, accountability right now. And then I'm
Hmm.
like, oh wait, you need to relax. Like, who are you? Like, who are you to do this? Who are you
Hmm.
to impose these limitations on yourself or even like on other people? Like,
Hmm.
or you can't hold people accountable. They have to do that themselves. Like that's something
Hmm.
that I feel like I've really learned. Like you can be like, hey, you hurt me and you violated my boundary and you can kick them out. But that whole process of them actually understanding where they went wrong, you don't I have no control over that.
Correct. Yeah, correct.
And it's that process has been really hard for me to grapple with. Like
Hmm.
because I want to be like it's really simple to see how this is wrong, but it's tough.
And like I think about the experiences that I had like growing up and understanding that like basically everyone that I was surrounding myself with was also a Saturn and Aries baby. Like
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
so we all
Yes.
were in that like trial and error period of like I need to experience this for myself in order to
Mm-hmm.
understand like what is I cannot have someone tell me what is right and what is wrong. I have
Yes.
to act and understand that through like the repercussions of my actions.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And it's not self-destructive, like I don't think that that's the right word, but there is this like I'm putting myself out there and I know I'm going to be received very positively or very negatively, and that is going to teach me, but I will
Mm-hmm.
not learn until I do that.
Yep. 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 I remember having conversations with my parents when I was younger and them being like no, you can't do that. And I'm like, okay, well, I learn best by experiencing things. So you can tell me that this is probably not the right move, but I'm probably still going to make it because I need to learn for myself. Like I need to have that
Exactly.
experience.
Hmm.
Ah, it's interesting. It's really interesting. Aries placements. Here we are. Let's chat through the stuff that was going on in history because I
Okay.
feel like during like Saturn and Aries times, because I feel like they really correspond. And you did like such fabulous research on all of the historical stuff. So shout out
Gemini
to you.
rising. I love the facts.
Yeah. No, it's necessary because I'll just sit here and talk about like theory all day. But yeah, no, what did you feel like what were like the things that really stood out to you
Mhm.
in with Saturn and Aries in the past in history?
So the biggest thing, okay, so as I said earlier during our pre-chat, like obsessed with the crown right now. I've been like totally stalking all of like the royal family and their charts and shit. So first thing I definitely want to talk about is Princess Diana.
Mm-hmm.
So we have the Princess Diana, who, Church of England, like divorce, not really allowed, like kind of a bad thing. Charles and Diana, Charles heir to the throne, wants to divorce Diana. So, and it's the first really, aside from like Margaret and Antony, like it's the first really big like royal divorce that's happening. And it finally finalizes on August 28th of 96. With Saturn South Node stuff going on. So Saturn is retrograde at
That
6 Aries.
release.
South Node is at 8 Aries, and both are squaring Jupiter, which is also retrograde in Capricorn at 7 Capricorn. So, and lots of stuff that I found out was these like really nasty cardinal T squares that were going on when this big shit was happening.
Mm-hmm.
And
Wait a second. That makes a lot of sense because last year, when all that cardinal stuff was happening, that's when from the interview, that's when like all of the shit was popping off like recently.
with
Like,
Harry and Meghan, yes,
right. And that whole time when Saturn was going through Cap, Mars was in Aries. Okay, keep going. This is wild.
And so that happened late August of 96. The divorce is finalized. That's the first really big like Charles, when Elizabeth dies, I don't know, in 20 years, whenever that happens, Charles, assuming, is going to take the throne and will be the first divorced monarch, and like marries Camilla, who is also divorced. So there's this like, I always think of Saturn and Aries being like bringing a lot of newness and a lot of difference, and that it will be the first. I would not be surprised if Charles takes the throne during the Saturn and Aries transit.
That would be wild.
Being the first monarch to like have be divorced and have a partner that's recently divorced, like big, unheard of, like never been done before. So there's that.
Right.
Basically a year to the day after the divorce, the divorce was August 28th of 96. Diana dies August 31st of 97. Saturn once again in Aries, at 19 Aries this time. She's pretty cardinal herself. She has her Saturn at 27 Capricorn and her Sun at 9 Cancer. So pretty like those cardinal Saturn transits are going to really hit her. And literally, like, she got hit by a drunk driver and died. And that was like, I feel like to this day, there's this sense of Saturn and Aries deaths specifically having a like longevity and like a long lasting impact. Like to this day, people are still talking about Princess Diana. Like,
that's true.
Her death is still infamous. Like there's still so much like, was it a cover up? Like, did the government actually, like, we'll never know, obviously, but like there's that, like with Saturn and Aries deaths, like longevity is like a big thing. I think like we are still talking about Diana 23 years later, and we probably still will be talking about her for a long time. And then also like with that time period of like 1996 to 98, they had like that sheep was cloned, that first mammal was cloned, and like science, innovation, technology, Saturn and Aries, like newness, pioneering. And Madeleine Albright, first female Secretary of State. So woman in politics in a big position, newness.
Lots of firsts.
That's
why we're doing Saturn and Aries first.
I didn't bring this up in our pre-chat, but I think there is a lot to be said about Saturn being in fall in the first sign of the zodiac. Like Saturn does not like first. Saturn does not like beginnings. Saturn likes closure. Saturn likes endings.
Yeah, it's a really good point.
It's exalted in Libra, which is the middle, like balance. Right. But like in Aries, being like in the forefront and at the very head of the zodiac, Saturn's like, I'm gonna sit in the back. I rule two signs that are almost at the very end, so like I'm just gonna hang out in the back of the parade.
Right. Yeah. No, that's such a great point. And Saturn really likes to stay in his lane. It's like doesn't really like. I'm pretty sure his orbit is pretty. He doesn't really fall off path too much. And so going around the sun, he's just kind of moving slow, and keeping everything contained and operating in the background. And then also that speaks to Saturn having its joy in the 12th house too. Like the 12th house is like the background. Like it's all that stuff that you can't see from the ascendant. And like he loves being in a space where you just kind of like focus on the stuff that he's got to focus on, and
he's like, nobody talk to me.
Yep.
I want to be by myself.
It's interesting. It's this really interesting. And it's also really interesting. Saturn in Leo has some debilitations too, probably, right?
Hmm.
Definitely. I can't
Yeah.
think of, yeah, because then that also would resonate with the sun sign, with sun sign, oh my God, with the sun's exaltation and domicile as well, and being
Hmm.
sun being exalted in Aries and being in domicile in Leo and really feeling comfortable with like being seen.
Hmm.
And Saturn's like, no, don't look at me. Do not perceive
Right.
me.
Saturn having his detriment in both Cancer and Leo, the two signs ruled by the lights. Like Saturn does not like
Mm-hmm,
the
mm-hmm,
spotlight. Saturn likes to be in the
mm-mm,
dark, in the background.
mm-hmm, 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 mm,
And
mm-mm-mm.
Aries is like, look at me. And Saturn is fully like Christina Aguilera, like, don't look at me. No, no.
I'm screaming. I'm screaming. No, yeah, I definitely that we're gonna put an ear like an earmark or whatever that fold down thing in your book is. For Saturn and Aries, and if Charles um
That's
is
when
be
Charles takes the throne. Yeah.
yeah, that would be really interesting. That's a really good like a really interesting
Hmm.
connection. He's I
Because
don't like
Saturn will
him.
also, Saturn in Aries corresponds to Queen Elizabeth's fourth.
Oh,
And, Hellenistic tradition, like the fourth can be death. Like it's not always the eighth,
yeah,
it's also
right,
the fourth.
right, right.
So,
Oh,
and
that's a
Elizabeth
really good connection.
Elizabeth has Mercury in early Aries in her fourth,
Gotcha.
um, and Mercury's the ruler of her sixth. So I would not be surprised if some
Mm,
like super bad illness comes out.
yeah,
Saturn transits Mercury, she passes. Charles ascends to the throne with Saturn and Aries.
yeah, yeah. That would make sense. Saturn is like that, the endings, bringing that end. Um, it's interesting, but it's always like coupled with this really interesting new beginning. Um, I feel like that is like I don't know, like I feel like that's more Aries to me than Saturn in domicile. Um, like it is more about like endings and then kind of things are just over. Like I don't know, like Saturn and Cap, things just were destroyed and they just ended.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Um,
Mm-hmm.
even Saturn and Aquarius, like I feel like there will be endings to things and they're just gonna end. There is no like, okay, how do we kind of morph this into like the next thing, or I don't know, but I feel like Saturn and Aries is kind of really coupled with that like idea of an ending also being uh in line with a new beginning, or a first. Maybe I should
Mm-hmm.
say an ending and a first.
And the first,
Um
yeah. I like
Go
that a lot.
Aries.
Go Aries.
Ah.
Um, and so I think the bread and butter of like my Saturn research was totally like the late 60s.
Mm-hmm,
So
mm-hmm.
Saturn enters Aries March 3rd, 1967, and leaves April 29th of 1969. So pretty brief. It's only there for 2 years. Like it's a very brief Saturn transit. I know when we have our Saturn return, Saturn is there for like basically 3 years. Pretty. I know it's like the longest stay of Saturn that it could possibly. I know it's terrible.
That's hilarious. That's so like funny too. And like Aries, you're gonna take that long, really? That's what you want to do?
Right. Exactly. And so the big thing with specifically like 67, so Saturn just moves into Aries in March. 67, we have the Summer of Love, which is like huge resistance to the Vietnam War. It's a peaceful protest. Oh my God, I had the word radical. Saturn Aries feels very radical to me, and like
Mm-hmm,
people are
mm-hmm,
literally protest. People are protesting by like having fun and doing drugs and like listening to music and like all this like hippie shit, you know.
mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And then so Saturn stations in Aries at the end of July 25th, and during that the Detroit riots are happening, which is like a big like one of the biggest riots of like racial justice riots in American history. Starts on the July 23rd, ends July 28th. While Saturn is like literally not moving. Saturn is at 12 Aries that whole time.
Mm-hmm.
So once again, here we have protesting, like fighting for justice, radical stuff, like this like it literally like they are burning shit down like to create a new system we have
Right,
to burn this shit down, like there is
right.
no other way. um LBJ like creates a commission to respond to this, and basically they're like, yeah, like it's white people's fault, like this commission of all white people is like, it's white people's fault, that's it. And like then they move on and they're like, okay, we're done. And like
Right.
what did you actually, there's a lot of, and I don't want to say that everyone that has Saturn and Aries does this, but there is a lot of like performativeness that comes with
Mm-hmm,
Saturn and Aries. Like
mm-hmm.
look at me, look at what I'm doing. And that is so contradictory to Saturn's nature of like wanting to be in the back and not wanting the spotlight.
Yeah.
And like I think a lot about, especially like where I live in Vermont, there was this huge like protest by the police station that lasted like a month. Like people were camping out in front of the police station. We marched every day. Like it was a big thing. But there were so many of these like stupid white girls that would just come for like 10 minutes and be like, oh my God, I'm posting on Instagram. Like, look, I'm at the protest, and then would leave. And you're like really? Like you're not doing anything. Like this performativeness shit has got to go. And like
Yeah.
that feels very, that is one of definitely the negatives of Saturn and Aries to me is like,
Yeah.
I could be doing the minimal thing, but as long as people are seeing me,
Right.
like I just want to be seen for what like the 2 seconds of work that I'm doing,
Right.
as opposed to you have these like Saturn and Caps and Aquariuses that are like doing work and like are the backbone of this like protest and shit that are like
Right.
not getting any recognition. So
Yeah.
a little tangential, but I think it's important.
No, it is for sure.
And so then we moved further into 1967. On October 9th, Che Guevara is killed in Bolivia. Another T-square that's happening. The
Wow.
sun is in 15 Libra, Saturn's at 8 Aries,
Wow.
and the moon is in like early Capricorn.
Wow.
And it's a full debilitated T-square. So the sun is
Right.
in detriment, or the sun is in fall, Saturn is in fall, and moon is in exile.
Wow. Yeah.
Saturn is also like Saturn's at 8 Aries, and Che Guevara's ascendant is 6 Aries.
Wait a second. Stop.
Cut the cameras, dead ass.
No, like I'm not even kidding. Okay, really, really quick anecdote about Che. So, I had the honor, honestly, the deep honor to take a trip to Cuba when I was a junior in high school. It was like this like special studies program that we went with, that like the juniors and sophomores did. And so I went to Cuba. Oh my god, it was so, don't get me started. While I was there, I learned all about Che because he is everywhere. Like there are like murals, and there's like you can't walk without seeing pictures of him. So obviously this is me, my like 16, 17-year-old self, and there's this new revolutionary that I just found, and it's like he's from this like does a lot of work with this really great country that I'm just visiting. I was so just like awed by him and just everything. And then I got like posters, I got keychains. No, I became like obsessed.
Che stand?
No, like hardcore. My teacher was like, I don't really know what's going on here, but I was like, I don't know why you guys are surprised. Che was like really good friends with other Black revolutionaries, so I don't really know why you guys are shocked by this, but it's just I did not know that he had Aries rising. Like that just really, really kind of strikes me, because I'm just like, wow. I don't know. Okay, sorry, continue.
No, that's really good. And like I was gonna say, Aries rising supporting Aries risings. But yeah, like Saturn was up like retrograde and applying to his ascendant by 2 degrees, like, and he was shot and killed.
Yeah.
So here we have a revolutionary, like someone very political, someone very like you either loved him or you hated him, and he passed.
Yeah.
I am gonna jump dates because Martin Luther King was also shot and killed during Saturn and Aries.
Wow.
Yes. He was killed. The Saturn was at like 1520 Aries, and the sun was like 1516. Like they were conjunct within a degree. Like Saturn was about to start his new cycle because the sun was about to pass him. And both were very close to the North Node, which was at like 18 Aries. Martin Luther King dies. I know.
Where was Pluto? Do you know?
67 or 68.
Wait, I can
Virgo. I think Pluto was in Virgo.
Oh, interesting. Oh no, yes, you're right. Because I remember that, thinking about that.
Because I was like, that's like a year before my mom was born, or no, that was like 2 months before my mom was born, and she has Pluto and Virgo. So I think it's Pluto and Virgo.
Yeah, it is. Wow. Wow. And Uranus was in Virgo too at that time.
Yes, that was Pluto, Uranus, and Neptune was probably in Scorpio.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Oh my God.
crazy shit with Saturn and Aries is like it's wild.
It's really wild.
Especially with those when the nodes get involved, like
Yeah.
it
Shit
fucks
pops
shit up.
off.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
And here we have another very important assassination. A month later, June 5th, 1968, Robert Kennedy shot and killed. Very quickly after he wins, I think he won like the California nomination for the presidential election or something. And yet another cardinal T-square.
Wow.
Mercury is stationary at 2 Cancer. Saturn is direct at 22 Aries. North Node is at 16 Aries, and the moon is at 5 Libra. So, and I read something, I think it was on Wikipedia. I'm a big Wikipedia. I get all my information off Wikipedia. I love it. He was like at the time considered to be the most like liberal and left-leaning candidate in American history for the president. And there's a lot of conspiracies that the government got him killed as well.
Yeah.
So we have like Martin Luther King, Che, and RFK, 3 of them all killed during the Saturn and Aries transit. All 3 very left, liberal, social, like very left-leaning.
Right.
And they were all killed probably by the government. I don't want to get like your video flagged, but
no, I appreciate it. I appreciate
shady
it.
shit.
Yeah. No, that is shady.
And then on a more like mundane level, November of 1967, the first Rolling Stone magazine was published. And Rolling Stone, for the time, very new, very left, very like
right,
out of the ordinary.
Right.
Saturn and Mars were mutual. So Saturn was in fall and Mars was exalted. They had mutual reception. And then that day, Venus moves into Libra and creates yet another cardinal T-square with Libra Venus, Cat Mars, and Aries Saturn.
Interesting.
So at least in like for this time, like these cardinal T-squares really showed like really big prominent change. Like Rolling Stone still read today. If you were to tell me to name 5 magazines off the top of my head, I'd name Rolling Stone would be one of them.
Right. Right.
Very influential, very polarizing as well. Like they've had some pretty, like I remember they did that story about the University of Virginia that was like totally made up about like the sexual assault that happened on that campus.
Oh.
And they got like sued for it.
Oh my God.
Yeah, and I think that was Saturn and Libra that happened. I don't remember the exact, but if I'm trying to think of how old I was and I was hearing about that, and I'm pretty sure it was Saturn and Libra.
Yeah.
So just like lots of really big, monumental like shifts happening during the Saturn and Aries period.
Literally.
That's the one that I definitely did the most research on because I think it was the most like there was the most prominent examples of like Saturn and Aries being like this big change.
Right.
Another one that I think is kind of important to talk about is just because of how Wikipedia phrased it. So, but then the period before that, 37, 38, and 39, Saturn and Aries, the Hindenburg disaster happens. Literally, the blimp caught on fire. And Wikipedia said the publicity shattered public confidence in the giant passenger-carrying rigid airship and marked the abrupt end of the airship era. An abrupt end, Saturn and Aries, like things coming to a complete halt out of nowhere.
Yep.
That immediate closure, so Saturn and Aries. And so the reason I also very like thinking about this coronation with Charles is because Elizabeth's dad, King George, his coronation happened recently after Saturn had moved into Aries, into her 4th whole sign house. So like big change, start of a new era in her home and family life.
Right.
On her Mercury, which rules her 6th and 9th, 9th being the house of like God, and the person who is the monarch of England is seen as like the god of the Church of England. And then it was when Saturn made the opposing square to her Mercury in Libra when she was coronated. Saturn was in her 10th, with her part of fortune is also in her 10th. So strictly speaking, like obviously astrology, lots of pattern recognition. That's why I'm thinking that this Saturn Aries is really going to bring Charles to the monarchy. What else? Quick things for Saturn and Aries then. September of 1937, Their Eyes Were Watching God is published, really influential, like leftist book. October of 1938, the minimum wage law is established. Saturn and Aries as well. And then September 1939 is seen as like the official beginning of World War II.
Oh yeah.
Saturn is retrograde at 0 Taurus with the North or South Node. With the South Node, both retrograde back into Aries within the same month and are basically in a conjunction in Aries the whole time until Saturn moves back into Taurus in March of 1940. And like obviously World War II.
Right.
Explosive, life-changing, life-altering, like changed the course of politics for the future.
Right.
Saturn and the South Node hanging out in Aries for like 6 months together.
Mm. It's also interesting. I think of Aries as like energy that's all at once. It's like stuff all at once. So it's
Mm-hmm.
all of these endings with all of like Che and MLK, all of these assassinations happening literally all at one time, like within months of each other. It's
Mm-hmm.
so like,
It's crazy.
yeah, it really is. It's so wild.
And
Oh
like
my
all like
goodness.
assassination brings a very abrupt ending. Like nobody thought
Yep.
MLK was gonna die at like 39 or however old he was, but like
Right.
happened.
Oh my gosh. Interesting.
Crazy. Yeah,
Yeah.
crazy stuff. And then the only really earlier thing that I found for the first, so Saturn in the early 1900s was 1908 to like 1910. NAACP was founded then. That's the only like
Sweet.
big thing that I saw.
Ah, so sweet. Oh, I love this list of people who have Saturn and
Mm-hmm.
Aries. This is so awesome.
Mm-hmm.
Einstein?
Einstein, Saturn and Aries in the 10th.
Huh.
Mm-hmm.
We're
My
onto something.
my favorite is honestly Lord, having Saturn and
Mm.
Aries as her. So she has Jupiter and Capricorn literally on the ascendant,
Mm-hmm.
um, all ruled by her Saturn and Aries in the fourth. And she has Saturn like barely in Aries. I think it's at the 0 degree.
Mm-hmm.
And her like being someone who lots of her inspiration is drawn like from her childhood and growing up, but like
Mm-hmm.
is now like a world traveling pop star. Like
Right.
is never really back home in New Zealand, like where she's from.
I didn't
I
know
mean,
she
not in
was
the
from
time of
there.
COVID, but like yeah, she's from New Zealand.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I'm yeah, big Lord fan. My Scorpio sister over there. Um, yeah, traveling the world, like going around. Her music, I think, I don't know if this is biased, but I think her music is very influential on like how pop music has changed.
Mm-hmm.
If I were to cite like important pop albums of the 2000s, like Pure Heroine would obviously be in that
Yeah.
listing because a lot like that bare bones sound that she
Mm-hmm.
has in that album,
Mm-hmm.
like that was not super common before that album dropped, and then that album dropped, and now everyone's like, I'm gonna sing over a loose drum beat and call it a song.
No, I love Lord. I kind of slept on Lord when I was younger, and then I met a friend in college who was like a really big Lord person and was like playing Lord all the time, and I was like, oh, wait a second, like
She kind of slaps.
yeah, no, yeah. It's also really interesting. It was interesting to note um, her career kind of just like take off, and um, I actually heard. I was chatting with somebody. I think I was chatting with my boyfriend about this, about Lord, and about like how she was. I don't something like maybe she has a really rich family, or I'm not. I don't really remember. There's something about like her having been making music for years before she kind of actually took off,
Yeah,
and it's just once again like all of that success kind of happening at one time,
at
like
once.
that
Yeah.
whole like Royals. This whole time that we're talking about this, I'm just that song is in my brain, and I know so many other songs by her, but it's just like right here, and I just cannot. It's just going.
Yeah.
But it like she took over, and you're right, completely changed the course of pop music.
And like at
um
such a young age,
yep.
Royals came out. So she is a year older than me, like to the day.
Oh,
Well,
that's
her
so
birthday
fun.
is her birthday's the day after mine, but the year before. So I'm always like,
Yeah,
we're a year apart basically.
yeah.
Um, and just thinking about like that album came out and like it was like 2013 or something. So we were 15, 16,
Hmm.
and like so was she.
Yeah, it's wild. It's
It's wild.
it's really wild. It's really really wild. I also feel like Saturn and Aries kind of can also kind of be representative of like having lots of, actually this may not be applicable, but I feel like it kind of can speak to having a lot of like responsibility, or maybe this is just Saturnian stuff in general and having a lot of Saturnian influence, but having a lot of responsibility or having a lot of discipline or whatever, putting that upon yourself, um, or limitations upon yourself at a really young age, and getting that process of like really understanding discipline, really understanding limitations and even
Mm-hmm.
authority, and how authority enforces
Mm-hmm.
limitation and all those sorts of things really young, and really becoming familiar with
Mm-hmm.
that, and um very well aware of that long-term stuff that may not be something that you appreciate.
Mm-hmm.
Hmm.
Well, I think a lot about, like, as a Saturnian person myself, I have Moon, Jupiter, Midheaven, and Venus all ruled by Saturn. And I, from as young as I can remember, have been told, like, you're so mature for your age. Like, and I've
Yeah.
always like my grandma used to work at a nursing home, and like old people loved me. Like I connected to like the elderly as like a 5-year old. Like I have
Yeah.
always been like friends with older people. I've always dated people that are older than me. Like there's something about that Saturnianness that is like people my age, like that the maturity is just not there. And like I'm always connecting to people much older than me. Like it's quite interesting actually.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I have that same exact experience. Like I I was always really I always remember having like um this old man used to live down the street from us, and I would always just we always just had this really like bizarre not bizarre, it wasn't anything bizarre at all. He was just like sitting on his porch all the time,
Mm-hmm.
and I would always just be like walking my dog, and we'd always like stop and have like these really pleasant conversations, and then we would
Yeah.
just carry on with our lives. It was so interesting, and I just look back and I'm like, I've always just felt such a weird affinity to older people.
Mm-hmm.
That definitely, it definitely is a Saturnian thing. Like I don't I it's just this really interesting reverence, and like mutual respect. I feel like, I don't
Mm-hmm.
know, I just feel like they kind of know. And I don't know, like it's just so bizarre. And I just think like being a kid and like having long conversations with like adults, and being like how I was talking to this 50-year-old human for
For like an hour.
literally, and I'm 13. What?
Exactly. Yeah,
Like,
exactly. It's there's that like I don't know if it's an appreciation for like maturity or this appreciation for like lived experience, but there's something there
ooh,
about like, and it's not in this weird like respect your elders kind of way. Like I think that that
mm,
notion is really antiquated, but it's this
yeah,
like you have a lot that I can learn from because
yep,
you're twice my age.
yeah,
Therefore, the things that I'm going through, you've obviously experienced. Like
hmm,
navigating your 20s is like notoriously extremely difficult. And so, like, obviously, I'm going to turn to those people that are much older than me to be like, what did you do? Like, how did you get
right,
through it?
right, right, yeah, yeah. I remember, this is like, I think it was like a month, maybe a month and a half back. I tweeted about Saturn and Aries, and I was like, I really want to talk to people who were like that 67 Saturn and Aries group, and how I just want to know how they burned it all down. And then Sam Reynolds responded and was like, yeah, I had to learn essentially like humility, and learning that like you may have the power to do something, or you may have the ability to do something, but that doesn't mean you need to do it right now. That doesn't mean that it needs to all get done immediately. Um, and I was like, wisdom from above. Like it just felt like, I don't know, I always just feel like, um just because of that lived experience, older people are just able to kind of provide you with a perspective that you can only get through time and through living. um and I love that. Like I'm like excited to grow up, and I'm excited to be older so that I can have had all of these life experiences, and I'm like, okay, lessons. I have all of these
I
lessons
have all these
now.
lessons. Yes.
Yeah, like I can't wait.
And I think something, I don't know what you said that made me think of this, but I think also a lot of the lessons that come with Saturn and Aries, like Sam said something like humility and patience and like doing things. Um, God, that was an awful paraphrasing. But I think a lot of the lessons with Saturn and Aries are you don't need to do everything by yourself.
Yes. Yes.
Aries can be so, and like in both a positive and negative way, be very like me. Like it's the sun's exaltation. Like
Right.
hello, it's very me, very like I know what I want and I'm going to do it. However, long-term change and like longevity is not strictly your job. Like you need to learn the connection with others.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think that specifically you're, I don't want to like expose you, but you're Jupiter and Aquarius too, right?
Yes.
And so like there's that interesting combination of Jupiter being in that humanitarian like group oriented sign and Saturn being in this like me sign. And so I think that there's that nice balance there for at least for our year of people like
Yeah.
Saturn and Aries, Jupiter and Aquarius have
Yeah.
that like there's that communication there with that
Yeah.
sextile and whatnot.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah,
I
a lot of
agree.
Saturn and Aries is totally like you can't put the weight of the world on your shoulders. Like you have
Yeah.
to share it.
Yeah. No, oh my God, I totally agree. That's been that's been like a lesson that I've really been kind of I've definitely feel like I've been learning with Saturn rolling through my 11th and in Jupiter as well, having a Jupiter return and all that. I'm just like, you know what? I can't, there's no reason for me to do this all by myself. And why would I do it all by myself? Like,
Right.
that doesn't make any sense. Like, people, at some point, you need to learn uh, your own limits. I feel like we're speaking about this at the very beginning, about just being able, like, just going and like going and trying to figure out where you kind of stop. Um,
The burnout, it's
and
so real.
yeah, it is. It is. It's being, I feel like Saturn being in a fire sign is just like hot and oh, like
Mm-hmm.
oh.
It's a weird place to be because Saturn is debilitated in two of the three fire signs,
Mm-hmm.
but still has triplicity there. Like is the cooperating Lord, so he's not like fully like I don't know what the fuck's going on. Like he has triplicity there. There could be some bound rulerships there too, depending on where it falls in the sign. But like
Right.
for the most part, like he doesn't know what's going on. He's like, I'm not used to this level of energy. I'm not used to this level of like movement
Mm-hmm.
that fire brings. But
Mm-hmm.
like I got to deal with it. Here we go.
Yeah. 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 It's really interesting. I I'm like I sympathize, but I'm also really excited slash sympathize, I guess is the right word, for people with Saturn and Aries. I know a lot of other people, I know a good amount of people who have Saturn and Aries. And I'm just like, we got it. We got, like, you got it. I know it's hard. I know it's hard, but like, I'm really interested to see where we are by our Saturn returns. I'm really interested to see that. I feel like we are like, I don't know, it's going to be really cool. Like we're really doing things in this really unique way. Like we are
Mm-hmm.
building buildings with a fork, um with like a
Truly,
spoon
truly.
as a shovel, and Play-Doh as cement. Uh yeah, it's the tools Saturn, or the resources Saturn's given, is they're funky ones. They're really funky, but um I I have faith. And I have faith. Also, maybe it's like the starting and the maintaining that's also maybe an issue. Like maybe it's also like, you know, I feel like cardinal signs are like initiating something, but and that's why that's why Capricorn, oh, like I love that like Mars being exalted in Cap, because it is being able to initiate something and have the strategy to carry it out.
The
Um,
wherewithal, absolutely.
Right, right. But with Aries, it's like I'm gonna initiate this whole new form of doing things.
And then
And
I'm gonna pass it to somebody else.
right, right. No, literally. It's you know, I feel like that energy is necessary, because you need someone to just like go, just go.
Mm-hmm.
um, and you need like the first person in the relay, and then
Mm-hmm.
things can carry out and can get moving after that. Um,
Absolutely.
but yeah, was there anything else? I'm trying to think about, there was anything else that we wanted to chat about in terms of um
Did
Saturn.
we talk about the hard aspect pattern thing
We like danced around it.
briefly?
Yeah. Yeah, we
Okay.
can go
Well,
through it
something.
again though.
Yeah. Something that I think is just really important for people. So if you're watching this video, you probably have Saturn in Aries and are trying to learn more about it. So um, thinking about the Saturn cycle. Saturn will make a hard, difficult aspect to your natal Saturn basically every 7 years. So 7 years you get the opening square, 14 you get the close or the opposition, 21 is the closing square, and then 28 you get the return. And it repeats in that like 7 year increment basically forever. But with specifically, so if you have Saturn in any of the cardinal signs, when Saturn is doing those hard aspects, it is either a sign it loves or a sign it despises. So for us,
Literally.
literally for Saturn and Aries, for us, the opening square happens with Saturn in Cancer, where it's in its detriment. So Saturn is not feeling super strong. That opposition happens with Saturn in Libra, exaltation. Saturn is like, I'm here to fight and I'm gonna win. And then that god awful closing superior square from Saturn in Capricorn, he's like, oh, it's so bad. It's so
So
bad.
bad. It's so bad.
I was like, I'm in my house with my own tools and I gave you a fucking fork. Like, good luck, bitch. And it's awful. And like I am almost jealous of my friends with like Saturn in like the mutable signs. Like my partner has Saturn in Pisces, like Saturn in Gemini, okay. Saturn in Virgo, okay. Saturn in Sag, okay. Like they're all so neutral, but like for us cardinal Saturns, it's one extreme or the next.
Literally.
And like I was telling you earlier, I remember Saturn in Libra. So Saturn in Libra for me, so when we were like 14, one of the literal worst days of my life that I remember to this day was the day Saturn retrograde started in Libra. And like the power of that Saturn opposition,
Yeah.
the longevity of its like Saturn keyword longevity of its impact, like we're still going through it in therapy to this day. But like just be prepared for those Saturn squares and oppositions for us cardinal Saturns, because they're not cute.
No, they're not. They're really not. It's Saturn and Libra was not
Was not it.
fun. That was not fun. I think back to that. It was just powerful Saturn. And also, this is so random, not really random, but just thinking back to February, like powerful Saturn does not produce many good things.
No.
Like there are, okay, I would say objectively speaking, like Saturn stuff is just going to be Saturn stuff, but
Right.
that Saturn stuff is not, like, it's not fun. It's just powerful Saturn is it can be really painful experiences because it's Saturn feeling so free and comfortable, enforcing limitations, saying no, being like, that's a boundary, that's a wall, I don't care. Like, it's I was really reminded of that back in Feb. I was like, oh right, dignified Saturn does not mean good Saturn. He's like grumpy grandpa times 10,000. Yeah.
And I don't think we super talked about the Saturn Pluto trine.
Right. Yeah. Right. That contributes to like things like us, like really this generation of Saturn and Aries folks really being like, we will bring the fire. Like we're bringing the fire.
Because I feel like a lot of, and not that I'm like a modern astrology denier, like I think it has its values, but I think a lot of the Saturnian qualities we usurped and gave to Uranus and Pluto.
Yeah.
In a way that is like Saturn is change and Pluto is, you know, like transformation. Kind of feels the same to me. But that Saturn and Pluto trine, we were talking earlier about the Saturn in Pisces with Pluto and Sag versus Saturn in Aries. And that Saturn in Pisces, Pluto like overcoming square must feels like Pluto is blocking. Like Pluto is like, you're going to do change my way. Whereas Saturn is like, okay, like I guess. But with the Pluto and Sag, Saturn and Aries trine, it is like Pluto is gifting his powers of change and powers of like transformation to Saturn and allowing Saturn to kind of light the spark and create the change. And so I think a lot of specifically our generation of Saturn and Aries with that Pluto and Sag trine is really on like the forefront of like lots of really important and good change.
Yeah.
Especially as, you know, the US is in its Pluto return.
I'm
about it.
Nope. I'm not about it at all. Pluto and Saturn, we saw it at it's one of its worst manifestations at the beginning of 2020, and then everything that has followed after that was very like, it was so Saturn and Pluto, but being in a Saturnian sign, I feel like it amplified the Saturnianness of it. But
absolutely,
like it was like it was like Saturn and Cap intensified tenfold. Like really, Pluto definitely really does bring an intensity, but that it's like an intensity of earth, an intensity of structure, destruction.
Mm-hmm.
But in Sag, it's like intensity of fire and a wildfire just kind of
Mm-hmm.
burning and like attaching to whatever it attaches to and just continuously going, and that
Mm-hmm.
really changing um our philosophies and our um visions of the world. I feel like Saturn and Pluto, Pluto and Sag, Saturn and Aries is very much like I having these really transformative visions and of maybe of the world and
No,
um
but like actually.
yeah, and then like that fire that's created for having these really wild like whoa things and these
Mm-hmm.
quests that we're being called on is like amplifying that structure that we're trying to uh
To destroy
implement
and
and
rebuild.
right,
Yeah.
exactly. Oh my god, yeah, no, I like that. That's so much better. Like that having those visions, those amazing philosophies that we're trying to like transform and metamorphosize, and it's fueling the destruction. And with that, like making room, making space for this new change, this new era of perceiving um structure. um I also feel like it really calls us to like self accountability and like it's a lot of like accountability of self, you know.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like from my own experience it has really been like, all right, you need to like you are responsible for what you do. um
Mm-hmm.
and you got to work
Mm-hmm.
through that,
Mm-hmm.
uh being responsible with that transformation and those visions. um
Absolutely.
yeah.
Yeah, I love that.
Saturn and Aries.
Aries. For all you night charts out there, I hear you. I feel you.
Yeah. Yeah.
Saturn return. Saturn and Aries support group. We will.
Yes.
We got you. It'll be
Yes.
so good.
Yep. Yeah. No, seriously. If anybody's out there who wants to do that, let us know. We
No,
are
like actually.
like very down because we need to support each other. We definitely do. Um, but how about we tell folks where people can find you, um, and all that jazz and stuff. And if you want to tell us about like if you're meeting with clients or your services and all that sort of stuff, or if you're just kind of just creating content, anything.
Yeah. So I do client consultations, birth charts, solar returns. My favorite things to do are like transits and like year ahead readings. I love predictive stuff. And like I have my website isn't up yet because I elected, yeah, my election falls in like the middle of July. So website will be up at that point, but right now you can book online for me. I do have a link tree, which is in my Twitter. It's my Twitter bio. Astrologon is my
So cute.
Twitter. Thank you. Although, okay, so I'm going through, as a non-binary person, I'm going through this, like, I want to change my name, but I will have to fully like rebrand my astrology stuff if
Yeah.
I pick a new name. So I'm like,
Yeah.
what do I do?
Yeah. I feel
So
that.
as of right now, it's Astrologon. It's my link trees in my bio. You can get to my scheduling from there. Um, what else? My Instagram and my Twitter are all linked in there too, I think.
Sweet.
Um, and on like a personal level, some things that I'm like currently looking at. I have my undergrad degree in art history, so I'm currently going through like art historical periods and seeing the
Ooh.
outer planet configurations, like when, yeah, yeah. And I'm working on like a big, not like a podcast, but like just like a video, like blog post when my website gets up about like romanticism started when this happened and then transitioned into, which is like super cool for me. And the same thing with like music and music periods. I'm trying to like go through. I really like looking at like large scale. This is why the Saturn and Aries thing was so fun for me, because I love looking at these like really large scale periods of time
Right.
and being like, okay, what were the planets doing? Like, how did it go? And then due to my recent obsession with the crown, the whole royal family chart analysis,
Right.
predictions, going through that as well.
Amazing.
Um, yeah, that's my stuff.
Awesome. No, that's great. I can't
Yeah.
wait. I can't wait. You're very gifted in like doing the research. You're very
It, it's that it's that Gemini rising is like get the facts, and that
Mm-hmm.
Scorpio Mercury is
Mm-hmm.
like
Let's go.
Rolodex. Like it's all up here. I can just flip through and pull it out and be like, oh yes,
That's
I got
amazing.
it.
That's amazing. That's so amazing. So we're gonna come to you for you are our generation's one of the historical correspondence, because it's so necessary. That's like a huge part of astrology. Is
Hmm.
I mean, I feel like that's what astrology is noticing the patterns, and in order to get those patterns, understanding the
You got to go as
patterning.
far back as you can.
Exactly. Exactly. I
Hmm.
always tell, like, meeting with clients that I'm like, all right, do you remember what happened back then when this was going on? Because it's kind of similar, slash, is this
Yes.
continuing of the cycle of that? And
Hmm.
yeah, no, it's
Yes.
that's what makes it cool, because then you're like, okay, here's some general guidance or
Hmm.
guideline. Um,
Exactly. Yeah. When
yeah.
talking to, especially when talking to clients about like eclipses and like things along those,
Mm-hmm.
or like perfections, I'm always like, okay, do you remember you're going
Yes.
through a seventh house perfection now? Do you remember when you were 19 going through your other seventh house
Right.
perfection? And they're like,
Right.
maybe.
No, it's so funny. It's so funny. It's interesting though when you do that and they're like, "Oh my god, yes!" And they're like, they had this really profound experience, and it's like, "Yup, that yes."
Very that. Very that.
Exactly. Amazing. Well, this was so amazing.
This was so
Um,
fun.
thank you so much for
Thank
chatting with
you.
me.
Yeah, of course.
And yeah, I'm just gonna end the recording and then we can hang on. Okay. Bye, everyone.